This is Energy of Business Moments with Michael Sipe, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their business success into your life and business. Energy of Business Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Michael Sipe.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Energy of Business Moments podcast on the Strategic Advisor Board channel. I am Michael Sipe, your host, and today we get to talk finance along with the energy of finance. And man, a lot of people have some energy around finance. I remember when I first started investing in the stock market back in the 1980s, we had this thing called the 1987 stock market crash, and it set a lot of investors back with a huge drop. And then it took a while for that market to come back. So anybody who's been a stock market investor has known that there are ups and downs with that. And our guest today, Dan Thompson, has been through all of that, and he has found an alternative or a series of alternatives in improving and finding a little different way of investing. So Dan, welcome to the show today. I'm excited to get into your topic and area of expertise.
Oh, Michael, thank you. Glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Dan, where are you from, and what's a little bit about your business that's going on?
So I'm California grown, but I moved to Idaho in about 1990. So now I'm kind of legal here, and had all our kids here, grandkids are all here. Everybody stayed around. So Boise, Idaho has been a great place to raise a family, and that's where I've been.
Awesome. So I've read a little bit about your bio, but part of it, is people are looking to invest and grow their wealth. And there are a lot of traditional ways of doing so, or semi-non-traditional ways of doing it that are quite accepted. But I'm curious because you found a few things here that are opportunities for people to invest in a different way. Traditionally, there's real estate, stock market, bonds, insurance, things like that. But you've got a long track record over many decades, and I would love to hear a little bit about what you're doing, and our audience would as well.
Yeah, well, so I started in 1986, about 6 months before that crash that you just spoke of. Well, no, a little longer than that, but yeah, I remember that 87 Monday morning walking into the office and everybody's panicking, but I was a brand new stockbroker, so I didn't realize really the impact it had. Then I got to do 94, and then again through the 90s, the dot-com boom and bust is what really kind of pushed me out of more traditional stock financial planning kind of community, because I just was getting so frustrated. Every time my clients would make money for 4 or 5, 6 years, it would turn against them. And of course, Wall Street makes it sound pretty. They say, oh, it's the Wall Street waltz, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as if we're all supposed to accept that. And that just, so right after that dot-com boom and bust, I had to find a better way. I started looking at everything, spent probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years, just what's working out there? Where are people making money? I noticed that most of the multimillionaires, billionaires they weren't relying on 401ks and mutual funds and so forth. They had their own way of doing things. Most of them were business owners, which, obviously we do a lot of work with business owners because those are more entrepreneurial minded, looking for ways to build and grow their wealth. Well, I kind of stumbled across this concept where if you start your money in a high cash value life insurance policy and then leverage it into other investments, that you could get $1 doing the work of $2, $3, $4. And originally it was kind of proposed to me that you would use your policy to buy stuff, buy a car, and you just pay yourself back. Well, it only took me about 15 minutes on a spreadsheet to realize buying cars and paying yourself back isn't going to make you wealthy, that you needed to leverage into other assets. So what I started doing early 2000s, I was loaning, I would build up my policy, then I would loan that money to a builder, and then he would pay me back and I would get a good rate of return and everything was great. And then a couple years later, he just said, Dan, why aren't you doing this yourself? And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll kind of do the legwork. You be the financing side, and we'll create your own company. So we started Oakmont Signature Homes back in the I guess it was 2007, 2008, kind of at a bad time, because then all of a sudden here comes the '08 crash and real estate went with it. But we did just fine through it. We were building very wise, in smaller homes. And that's kind of built into, gosh, I think last year we did almost 50 million in sales. And that just all came from perpetuating life insurance and using that as a capital account. And since then, we've got into student housing, multifamily, rentals, office buildings, and everything's kind of propelled from there. Now we like to use things like equipment leasing, where we can eliminate taxes. So there's a lot of good things you can do, but I would say I'm about as non-traditional as it gets, trying to help people build their wealth as safely as possible, as tax advantaged as possible, and then creating an income stream for them at retirement that not only they can't outlive, but it's going to be a tax-free retirement as well.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating. So tell me a little bit more about the sort of the tax advantages that you're talking about there, because I think for a lot of people, they know that some things are tax deductible, or they know that they can do tax deferred investments, kind of like a 401k or IRA, but here you're talking about something a little differently. So how does that work?
Well, obviously in real estate, we get depreciation, right? The nice thing about real estate, we get depreciation and appreciation at the same time. And basically in a typical real estate market, you're going to get a depreciation schedule over 27 years. So it's nice. It's probably going to offset your cash flow so that any rents and things like that are typically going to be tax advantaged and eventually tax free if you got enough depreciation. Equipment leasing is a little bit different. This gets fast forwarded. I like to say that we're going to save a lot of taxes in real estate over the years, but with equipment leasing, we're going to save it this year. And those are done by just the real simple 179 deduction. If I go out and buy equipment, and then what I do is I use kind of like best way to describe it is the Airbnb of big dumb equipment. So buying big forklifts and heisters and truss lifter and just all those big machinery. And then they run it like Airbnb. So they're out there leasing it, they're maintaining it, covering it with insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But what I gain is a huge tax deduction in the first year. Going forward, even a few more years of tax deductions. But man, I'll tell you, we've been able to wipe out people's income tax obligations fairly easily. And it's quite a, it's about as safe as investment as you can get. I mean, you own the equipment. It's very high demand. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. And that does sound fun. And it's interesting because we think traditionally about tax savings and if I can itemize that deduction, it'll reduce your income a little bit. But when you talk about depreciation at an increased rate like that against that equipment, man, now you're talking a much bigger deduction in a way, and it much faster too. So it makes sense about how you can find a way to really help reduce people's tax exposure that way. Good on you.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And then when you couple it with the life insurance as the capital account, you even do better. Any investment that you do that you can leverage your life insurance policy into is going to increase your rate of return and give you more tax advantages, which is why we try to capitalize these policies as much as the IRS and the insurance companies will let us. That's kind of where we like to start our dollar.
Yeah. And you're spot on, right? It is legal. It is accepted practice to do that. And it's just not many people know that that's available to them. So I'm glad that you're sharing that, because it's some really good value there, especially for a lot of our business owners out there, who are looking at their own financial situation as they grow their wealth. They're looking for opportunities to invest, and they have alternatives out there than traditional. So great. Well, Dan, you've talked about a couple of your businesses, and as we all know, we can have ups and downs in our business, and sometimes they can take an emotional toll. So for you, looking back on your career, what was a moment where you were just not had the wind knocked out of your sails and wanted to like maybe crawl into a hole, and how did you deal with that?
I think I kind of hit on it. It was the 90s .com boom and bust. Everybody was buying internet stocks, and that was the next thing that was going to make it. The millionaires were just getting made every day, and it was almost impossible to keep your clients away because they would be in maybe a more conservative blue chip type approach, making their 8, 9, 10%. And all of a sudden these tech stocks are making 30, 40, 50% a quarter. I mean, it was just crazy. So you couldn't help but get involved in them. And then when that fell off the planet, and it was just brutal to sit there and even though I didn't have one client, necessarily blame me. They knew it was the economy, but talk about wanting to crawl in a hole. And that's when I just said, I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to do this again. I'd rather make a consistent return over my lifetime without these 50 and 60% losses. But man, that was a hard year or two watching my clients, especially the ones that wanted to retire. And then, fast forward, we saw it again in '08. I remember talking to some people, they weren't necessarily my clients, but they had a couple $1 million in their 401k. It was, late 2007. And then all of a sudden they're down to, I think they dropped to 950,000. They lost 55% or something like that in their portfolio. And I just wish I would have talked to them a year earlier and said, hey, we got to start protecting this stuff if you're going to be retiring here soon. But those are times where you like you had indicated, where you just want to crawl in a hole and wish it'd all go away.
Yeah. Oh man. I think to a T, everybody, a large majority of the public, look at their finances and almost daily. And when they do, there's this attachment to the state of their finances. And if you are trying to help them, if an individual is trying to help them as a financial advisor, my dad was an investment advisor and went through that '87 crash with his clients, and the emotional burden of, hey, they are getting ready for retirement. Now they can't retire. Yeah. Can really weigh on you. And, what I love about your story there is you said never again. You took that as an opportunity to go, okay, I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to do something differently so I'm not in the same position again. So thanks for sharing that. That's really, really valuable. Well, on the flip side, we often have, those highs in our business and we, where we've made a difference. So for you, what's been one of the moments or a couple of moments where you were like, yeah, this was why I switched?
It's both a high and a low simultaneously. But one thing that happened that always strikes me, kind of even chokes me up, we had built several policies for this family, and what he had done is, as the father, he had put policies on his kids. They were older kids in their 30s and married and so forth, but we were just trying to get as much money and capital as we could. Well, his 35-year-old son, just struggling with depression and all kinds of things, ended up taking his life. So obviously that's a low, but the high was when the dad called me and just basically in tears saying, Dan, if we hadn't have met you, if we hadn't have implemented these things, his wife and kids would just be financially struggling the rest of their life. And so knowing that when we go in and we set up these portfolios, if you will, we know we're doing them for life while we're, assuming we're going to have a long life, but it's also nice to know that we've protected that downside as well. So that if these, tragic situations occur or just normal life expectancy occurs, that family's taken care of. And that's a great feeling.
Oh man, when you can be of service to others, even in adversity, that really is a really poignant moment. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's great.
Now, on the other side, I have to at least say the other high I get is when somebody is going to be paying 300,000 or 400,000 in taxes, and I can put that all back in their pocket in 1 year. That's a great high. Everybody's happy, and so those are what I live for.
Oh man, that sounds really, really appealing. And I know a number of our clients would benefit from being able to do something like that. We're gonna have to talk after the show. All right. Well, good. Well, I love hearing how business benefits. And you just talked about that there. And then for you personally, it sounds like it's the kind of thing that keeps motivating you, keeps you going.
It really does, and it's kind of rubbed off on my family. I say I cursed them with this entrepreneurial gene. So all my sons and son-in-laws own their own businesses. No one's ever had a quote unquote real job. They love to buy businesses. They love to analyze them. And, typically on Sundays, we're all together having dinner, and inevitably we're talking about business and how to grow it and how to, maximize revenue, or just analyzing, hey, I'm looking at buying this business. Everybody throws in their 2 cents. So it's a lot of fun. And again, it's kind of spawned a whole new generation of entrepreneurs.
Wow. Well, yeah, I would not call that a curse, but it is a wonderful thing. And, a lot of the experts will tell you that if you want to change your environment, that you need to surround yourself with the people that you want to be like and have that kind of experience. And so when you are talking about the family getting together there on Sunday, you're creating a vibe that is, hey, entrepreneurial spirit, and what can we do to grow? How can we invest? How can we, go and do something a little differently and grow our business? So, and grow our wealth. And that's a kind of vibration or frequency that a lot of people are looking for, forget that they need to surround themselves with that kind of environment. So I'm glad you shared that. That's a great point.
Well, it's obviously kind of fun, but they turned out to be better businessmen than even me. And I love that. They are amazing at marketing their businesses and growing them. So they can just take any business, and as long as it's a viable, decent product, they're going to make that thing grow. And it's fun to watch them do that. And I don't take hardly any credit at all, other than I just told them, look, you really don't want to 8 to 5 if you don't have to. Find a way to be productive in society, give people what they want and need, and you can't help but be successful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and great advice. Yep, good. Well, on the relationship side, we have partnerships, we have customers, we have employees, we have family. For you, what's been the most important relationship for you over the past few years?
I think you just hit it right on the head. Surrounding myself by like-minded, entrepreneurial type people. I give a lot of credit to my partners who are much more analytical than me. I'm kind of the guy who can tell the story, and they're much more of the deep, get into the numbers, crunch and make sure everything that we tell people is going to work. So those guys have been just invaluable to me. And I'd have to say my boys, watching them do what they do and the conversations we have, it just is always keeping me on my toes to make sure that as I look at my business and as they look at theirs, we're looking at the right things. We're trying to do the right things. We're trying to, again, find those things that our clients need and want. So it all, kind of anybody in that who's rubbing shoulders with me, I think has been a valuable asset to me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is some powerful input from those relationships, and it's sort of a self-sustaining piece for sure. Well, good. Well, obviously, we have people alive that we can get with every day, and we can have a mentor and that kind of a experience. But sometimes there are other people we would really, really wish we could talk to. And so, if you could meet anybody and have a moment with them to talk, deceased or living, who would that be and why would that be?
Oh man, you're going to choke me up again because I would say, so my dad died pretty young. I would love to talk to him, not because actually he was born, raised, and died poor. I mean, he just never really had a great financial life. But all I would want to know is if he was proud of me, and that if he thought I lived a life of integrity and doing the right thing, that would be what I'd want to know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's a great one. And a lot of people will get choked up over somebody who is so important to them. And especially if you had somebody who didn't get the opportunity to watch you grow and be the person you are today. Getting that kind of feedback from somebody so important would of course be quite valuable. So it makes a lot of sense there. Great example. Well, Dan, I've enjoyed having you here on the show, and you've shared some really valuable advice, both at a personal and professional level. So if people want to get a hold of you, learn how to invest in a different way, or just want to get a hold of you and learn some of your things that you teach on your website, how can they do that?
Yeah, the easiest way is just my YouTube channel, Wise Money Tools. That we have over 600 videos, all kinds of things, almost every financial topic under the sun. That'd be a great place to just kind of learn what we do. My website, wisemoneytools.com, obviously is a good place too. I've got a few books out there. In both places, you can typically download a copy of my newest book. I call it the 4 Keys to Building Wealth. It's just 4 things I think everybody needs to know in order to build their wealth. And I wrote it so that you could read it in an hour and a half and just be on your way and start doing good things.
No, that's awesome. Sometimes we just need that Reader's Digest version, if you will, because we get so darn busy. And it's a great way of getting some information out. Well, thanks for sharing that contact info, other tools that people can get to and use and utilize for their own benefit. So again, Dan, thanks for being on the show today. I have greatly enjoyed it.
Oh, I enjoyed it too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Energy of Business Moments with your host, Michael Sipe. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.